Hello, and welcome to the Old Soul Archaeology Podcast. My name is Michelle Janae. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Are you ready to dig deep? Hello, and welcome back to Old Soul Sojourn. My guest today is Zhanna Bright. She's a hypnotherapist and regressionist and has currently a holistic practice located in Encinitas, California. She guides people that seek help with anxiety, depression, dysfunctional relationship patterns, limiting belief systems that keep pulling back from living their lives in congruency and full potential. She works with hypnotherapy and HypnoCoaching sessions and also past life regression. And together with her clients, they unearth and release the root causes of their problems. In the past, she's been a bodywork and Reiki practitioner, and that led her on a lifelong journey of self-healing and exploration. She has traveled the world and lived in 5 countries, experienced quite a few miracles, and met incredible mentors and healers on her journey. At the end, what truly helped her heal was the ability and patience to dive deep into herself and become brutally honest with what was awaiting her there. Today, she says she feels content with her life, and she is passionate about helping others on their journey, unearthing their real selves. Welcome, Zhanna, to the podcast. It's great to have you as a guest.
Hello, and thank you for having me today. Thank you.
How exciting. What a beautiful story. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey. It looks like you had, I always kind of like to start with how people grew up, because we grow up sometimes so very differently. Sometimes we're in tune with our spirituality, our spiritual gifts, our attunements, if you will, to that side of life. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's kind of restricted from us. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up and what led you on your journey into 5 different countries.
Yes, very good question. And I believe that the journey of growing up is still continuing in my life. And, how I like to say, aging or, getting older is inevitable. Growing up is optional. So, yes, but to begin with childhood, I was born in former Soviet Union with a lot of struggles at that time. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth at all. I was raised mostly by my single mom. My mom and my dad divorced. It was a very traumatic divorce when I was 5. So long story short, I was abandoned by my father. And then later on, a couple of times when I was still kind of trying to cope with that abandonment issue by my father, my mother, of course, with her good intentions, but not knowing what she was doing, she sent me away to stay with some remote family because she was trying to figure her life out, basically. So that kind of re-triggered abandonment. So basically, I would say that my childhood was filled with abandonment and loneliness and isolation, and basically my introversion that was more natural. I am an introvert now. I do have the skills to talk to people, the social skills, but as a child, I was highly introverted, highly alert, also highly alert, and I would notice everything. I was spending a lot of time in nature or with some animals, dogs, cats, whatever I would, birds, whatever I would be able to find when I was a child. So that was mostly growing up and looking at the sky, looking at the clouds or the stars, looking into the patterns of nature. That was my regular day, so to speak. And usually I would have 1, maybe 2 friends that would be also introverted. And yes, so bullying was something inevitable, I would say, for a child that is so shy and introverted. Children can be rough and harsh, in school. So I had to, I had to go through that as well, that trauma of being bullied, being pressured by the peers. And that is something that I realized much later in life, of course, that was still affecting me, because knowing that what I know now and I've extracted from my journey from many years of healing, all those wounds, not just from this lifetime, but previous lifetimes, and the whole ancestral lineage that sort of affects us even more, actually, than our personal journey in this lifetime. That's what I've come to understand, come to realize. Healing all those parts in myself brought me to this understanding that not that we just choose, right? We like to think maybe that we choose the lifetime that we want to be incarnated into, right? But also our parents are only the reminders of what we came here to heal. And we choose a set of parents that will traumatize us unknowingly, of course, unconsciously, of course, right? I doubt that there are many parents that want to consciously traumatize their children. So I chose that particular set of parents that would re-trigger that abandonment issue in me that I've had for quite a few lifetimes. Yeah. And that was also running in my lineage, in intergenerational trauma, basically. So I would say that that was the biggest obstacle in my life to happiness and to feel content and fulfilled. Abandonment was number one, definitely. So I'm not sure what exactly to mention here.
No, that's okay. Let me go ahead and redirect us. So you've mentioned this this idea of sacred contracts, as Carolyn Meese has written, and other people, about coming here, incarnating in our different lifetimes to learn lessons. And I think to some people that's pretty foreign. When did you know that that was the case, or what was it that led you down that path to know that, wow, I'm actually here for a reason? I'm here. I chose a lifetime that would help me progress and grow, instead of this other idea that is unfortunately so common. I don't know if it's as common in Russia as it is in the United States or in the other countries that you've lived in, but I don't think it's the general consensus that we're here with a purpose, or even the idea of past lives, right? For a lot of people, if you don't walk in the circles that we walk in, is a little bit odd, right? So not that I have a listening audience that is incredibly unspiritual. I think the people that come to listen to Old Soul Sojourn on Old Soul Archaeology are in alignment. But I always like to get at the root of things, right? Because some of us are explorers, some of us are further along than others. How did you come to terms with that understanding that not only did your parents have a role in your development, but you also have a role in the development of other souls, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that if you want to use your language, you may unintentionally or unconsciously play part in traumas, which lead to, hopefully, right? Hopefully lead to growth. Tell me a little bit about that turning point in your life.
Yes. So as long as I can remember myself, when I was a child, in one of those days when I would look at the sky, again, I was a weird child, okay? I would have those thoughts, and I clearly remember some of the moments. It's not like a movie sort of type of memory, but flashes of memory. I would be looking at the sky and I would be asking myself, why am I here again? Again was the key word, right? Mm-hmm. So the understanding that I was here before, it was coming from very early in life, from just a few years old. I don't remember how old I was, maybe 6, maybe 5, something like that. But I clearly remember that I would be sitting on the grass and looking at the sky and like, why did I come here again? So that was a strange kind of thing. And then I was about 7, 8 years old, and I revealed to my mom this thing, which is completely, again, nobody can really prove, not with our abilities, but we were walking, I remember, from school. My mom was walking me from school to home. And I told my mom out of nowhere, like, Mom, do you know who created us? My mom was, and she is not into any of this. And she's like, who? She was kind of a little, shocked. I'm like, aliens. They created us. And we are kind of an outdated version of them. Maybe in the future we will be like them. I don't know. That's it, period. And of course she didn't respond because she thought it was crazy. But I clearly remember that moment as well. And I don't know what it was. I never watched alien movies or anything like that at that time. So I wasn't really impacted by, and we didn't have Hollywood movies at that time either, because of the Soviet Union was a closed country. So I remember that in the middle to late 90s, we started getting more of a American influence. But before that, no, it was mostly Soviet. So yes, it was kind of starting from there, from childhood. Like I say, usually children are closer to God, whatever God means to you, right? To the universe, to consciousness, to this universal intelligence. And as we grow, we begin to build layers around our memory, right? So the memory is still raw when we're children, and we can channel things. We can remember past lives. We can remember where we came from. I met those children. I interviewed them as well. Still at 5, 6, 7, they still remember. Later on, the memory fades, unfortunately, because of the conditioning and indoctrination of the world, education, and what other people around you, what adults believe in. We begin to absorb everything as absolute truth. And we begin to sort of develop our conditioning, our programming for life. For example, children until 11 years old, they walk in since I'm a hypnotherapist, I will use this word, hypnotic state of mind, which means our unconscious mind is wide open and open to also suggestions. We receive everything as a sponge. We absorb everything, right? And as we grow, we begin to develop a sort of a filter. We call it critical mind. Critical mind serves as a filter to receive information, but now I'm going to think, right? It's true or not. But before that filter develops in our mind, as we grow, we just receive everything, right? You're beautiful. Yes, I am. You're ugly. Yes, I am, right? So all of these suggestions, positive or negative, they just go in. And that's how we begin to kind of lose our initial memory, right? Sort of piling all those layers. Now, actually, to answer your question previously, what led me to travel the world and to live in different countries? Abandonment, abandonment and rejection. And of course, the biggest lesson in travels and running away from yourself, right? Anywhere you go, you take yourself with you. You can't run away from yourself. Yes. And I've been trying to do that for many years. Thinking, again, unconsciously, right? Thinking, oh, I love to travel to this country. I love to live here. I would love to travel there. Not understanding, not knowing consciously that the driving point was rejection and abandonment, okay? Which, again, everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't be here today and having a beautiful life if I did not embark on that journey of basically running away from myself. If I did not have that trauma that I chose for this lifetime, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this type of work today. So, you know, when people come to my office or virtual sessions, those that have had some severe trauma, abuse, and things that make them instantly cry when they talk about them. I try to bring a different perspective to them a little bit, gently, of course, that actually it is a blessing. It is a blessing. Trauma is something inevitable. Nobody escapes childhood. Nobody skips childhood. And childhood is always traumatic, regardless whether it was a very obvious experience of abuse, right? Verbal, emotional, physical, even sexual abuse. Or it was just a dysfunctional family that didn't have communication, that was sort of like not meeting your emotional and physical needs, right? Or if a child perceived their parents as good parents, right? I love my parents. What are you talking about? However, you learned the things that you are doing today from them. Okay, the belief systems that came from your parents, from this loving family, so to speak, they are interfering now with your life, with your progress, with your journey. You are, let's say, 40 years old, but you haven't had a relationship in your life longer than 2 months. Okay, and you love your parents. I totally get it, right? But you see how a person who comes from a sort of just abusive household, they know, okay, this seed is right there, it's there, right? Versus the person that perceives their family as loving and good and nice and great. I love my parents, I love my siblings. They would have a harder time to understand where it's coming from. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. As one who also ran away from myself, I can totally relate to. And, you know, I like to think of string theory and all of the paths that I could have taken, but every path that I did take really led me here. And
Yes.
to look back, it's so empowering, right? To see that everything that's happened to me is everything, like you said on your website, in your bio, everyone was a teacher. Every moment is a teaching moment. There's something interesting about that, though, because until we can make that mental shift from I'm a victim to I'm in, and I don't want to use the word control, but there is something about taking back all of those moments for oneself and drawing in whatever external or spiritual connection we have to make the journey with, right? There's an empowerment there. There is a control there, but it's this control that's gained from letting go. And the dichotomy or the paradox is that when we're trying to be so in control, we're not at all, right? We're victims. And that's been one of the biggest lessons in my life. So I understand the running away. For me, running away did also mean going to another country. So let's go there. In your 20s, you went off to Thailand, and I understand you've lived in Peru and Mexico and Greece. I lived in Mexico, and only Mexico as far as a foreign country. So I'm curious about your international experiences. You know what? I am in awe of people that, what's her name? Elizabeth Gilbert, you know, eat, pray, love. I'm just going to run off to another country and right.
Find myself,
right. And that's romanticized a lot in movies and things, but I think that your perspective on running away from yourself, and the more we run, the more we actually find ourselves if we open our eyes. And that's a big if, right? Yes, the big if, but we're always there. So talk to me about what it was like to go off to Thailand in your early 20s. What makes someone do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. So I think moving for me wasn't foreign at all already, because by the time I went to Thailand, I already lived in 3 different parts of Russia. And as you know, Russia is a huge country. So I lived in all kinds of places there. So it's like not near each other, but a very, very spread out geography. So like I mentioned before, my mom would send me out because I was still, a teenager. I wouldn't be able to do those things by myself. So moving and kind of starting from zero, from scratch, meeting new classmates and people was sort of already normal in my life. And I kind of always knew, starting probably from my early teens, I knew that I would want to leave Russia at some point. That there was something bigger for me. There was something larger than myself, something larger than I would be able to get here. Yeah, the mentality, the cultures, the languages, and everything. It was just so tempting. And I graduated from the university. Believe it or not, I still can't believe that I spent 6 years of my life studying financial management, which which I pretty much never applied. I worked for maybe a couple of 3 years. I think 3 years I worked in financial field, and it was the most boring thing ever. And I was sitting at my computer and thinking and looking around in the office full of women also working in those positions and I was the youngest one. They were much, much older. They were in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. And I looked around and I told myself, do you realize that these women have been here for 30, 40, and even 50 years? Is it something that you want? And in that moment, I had a choice, right? We always have a choice. It's a set of different choices that lead us to where we are. At the end of the day, it's only a simple choice. And I looked at them and something felt so off. They're not joyful. They're not so content in their life. They're robots. Mm-hmm. They're doing and living on an automatic sort of autopilot mode. And I said to myself, Zhanna, you have to figure out a way to make your life completely different from what you knew growing up and what you know now. So I found a way to get a job in travel business in Thailand, because Thailand is mostly tourism. Now they're closed, but used to be thriving tourism business. So, and it was so easy. And when I have one rule in my life, when things go easy and they flow, this is the right direction. This is where you need to go. So, and it just happened within 2 months, literally, I got a job offer and I went to Thailand, and this is where it all started. Then from there, and one step at a time, again, journey is not about some kind of an goal or destination. It's who you meet on your journey, who you resonate with, what you resonate with, just one step at a time. Of course, it has to be a calculated risk, right? We don't want to find ourselves without anything on the street or something, or in danger in a foreign country, somewhere where you don't speak the language. However, I felt it. So I am guided on my journey, and I do listen to that guidance. That guidance also brought me to the United States, where I didn't know any single person. In the entire country, I didn't know anyone. And it brought me here, and it took me again every step of the way. People would show up to help. People would show up to guide. I can't explain it other than just use the word miracle. I can't explain it in any other way, because when you're truly on your path, everything will be provided. everything. Of course, you have to work, right? Of course, you have to put effort into it. It's not something that is coming from the sky and manifesting itself right in front of you, your dinner or your lunch or a place to stay. But however, if you say yes on your path that is completely unknown, you're diving into this unknown zone where you, oh, whew, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, but I feel that this is the right path. I feel this is a signal for me. I don't usually share this story. So from Thailand, I went to Greece, and then after a year living in Greece, I went back to Thailand again because I just love Southeast Asia. It's colorful, it's so cultured, it's beautiful. And however, I can't see myself living there, for the rest of my life because of many, many different aspects. You're always white, you're always a foreigner, you always stand out from the crowd, and that doesn't bring you any benefits in Asia. Now also climate, it's very hot and it's just not my thing. However, I've met amazing, beautiful people on my journey. And naturally, I usually connect with much older people than myself. Older doesn't mean wiser, but in this case, I did meet beautiful, wise, amazing, mature people with so much depth and so much wisdom that they would share so gracefully. And again, for some reason, the consciousness, the universe would open my ear to specific things, right? Because we receive so much information throughout the day from all sorts of sources. However, when I would meet someone, when I would come across someone who is very special, I would feel that in my heart, and I would see that in their soul through their eyes. I usually connect with people when I see them through sort of deeper into them, and I can feel that connection that I've known you before. We've met before, and here you are again. It's such an honor to be here again with you. And they would share just small little parts of wisdom, and that would impact me greatly because at that time I was still, in my early 20s. I did all of that, partying, drinking. I never did drugs, but I was having fun. I was enjoying myself, but also at the same time I was coping, right? Drinking and partying is a coping mechanism because I was hurting on the inside, but I didn't know. I didn't know what's going on. I didn't know why my relationships wouldn't work out. I didn't know why I had that urge to move and move and move around the world, to travel, to see. I would have a hard time to sit in one place, to be in one place because I was not at peace within myself. And of course, when you are doing those things, you will meet that type of people on your journey that are also into partying, into drinking, right? And however, again, it's something either I just like to notice or I give all the credit to the highest consciousness for bringing those people on my journey, for sort of like this little slap on my head. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, there's a different part of life. There's something else to life rather than just moving around and drinking and partying and having fun with your friends, right? There is actually, look at this, there's Zen art, there's Zen artists, this beautiful woman who walked through Nepal mountains for many years. She walked Nepal. Who does that, right? And she's here. She loves you dearly. She embraces you and she wants to teach you what she does, right? That must feel so special. Who am I? Who am I? I'm 23, 24-year-old girl that came from Russia, and she's partying and drinking and living that lifestyle, a regular 20-year-old's lifestyle. But what did she see in me? Why did she tell me that? That would bring kind of this little, interesting, right? That's different. Another person that I met on my journey was a former monk in Thailand as well. He left monastery because he felt an urge to write music and to share his music that was his talent. And he said that being a monk was not enough for him, that he was already good inside of himself, within himself, he was already at peace. And all he wanted, because that music was coming through, he was the channel for this music. Nobody is the source in this world, in human world. We are not the source. We can only be the channels. Like we can only become an appropriate channel for a specific thing, for a specific information, right? Literally, it's not us who's doing this, right? It's the higher intelligence that is coming through us and using our hands, using our words, using our minds and our bodies to manifest things in this human world, because this is what we chose. So, and he left the monastery, and we had some conversations about that. And he said that there is something that we came here for, and I don't want to, purpose, dharma, all of these things. I know that as humans, we like to kind of put some terminology onto things, or like specify something. However, it's just the ultimate purpose, I believe, that in a human body, as a human being, it's hidden in the word itself. Human being, just being, smelling flowers, smelling the air, touching something, learning how to be in this limited physical body, physical form, right? Learning maybe how to manipulate energy, right? All of these things, we are just being in this ultimate purpose. It's not necessarily to learn something, to become someone that is also pressured from more likely a rational part of the mind, okay? That we tend to utilize much more in the modern day society because we were conditioned to think, to overanalyze, to find, I don't know, sense in everything, right? But being, it's much harder to do, to achieve, right? For us modern human beings, because we became human doings. So the ultimate thing, as we were talking with the monk in Thailand, with a former monk in Thailand, he said, you cannot be off your path. There is no such a thing. You cannot be on the wrong path either, because you are already breathing, right? You're already here. You are already accomplishing everything you set yourself to do and to achieve in this human form. There is no such a thing as being, I don't know, not becoming something or not becoming someone or meeting some kind of expectations, because you are already enough. You're plenty. You've always been enough, and you will always be more than enough. Just by being you, just by holding, sort of anchoring consciousness in where you are. Doesn't matter where you are, Thailand, United States, Peru, I don't know, Europe, it doesn't matter, but we are sort of like this channels of consciousness, and that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. We are part of the collective, sort of, and connected with the invisible kind of like this thread that goes all around this world, and we can't mess it up. We can't mess it up. We can't, even if we think that's something that we're not doing right, that's something that we haven't become, that's something that we should still do. What I've learned from him is that, and he's been a monk for over 30 years before he left the monastery and became a music composer. He said, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, so powerful to get yourself off the path? Do you think you are so powerful? There is much higher intelligence that is also driving your existence, and you are exactly where you need to be. There is no right or wrong. You are already being here. So, of course, the mind plays the games. Yes, the mind always likes to overanalyze, always likes to convince you in the things that you really don't need to know or don't need to follow. Soul, like I say usually, soul doesn't need a business. Soul doesn't need to prove itself to the world. Soul doesn't need anything. Yeah, it's the mind that does. The mind.
Right. And I understand that from a very personal place. My mind being what has driven me most of my life. I love everything you're saying. I mean, there's something fascinating about a couple things you said. And one is that when you are on your path, everything just flows to you. And that's something that I've been learning to approach, I guess, or let go, right? You had talked about how, as a human being is the hardest thing in the world, right? Because we have to learn to let go. We have to unclench the fist or get ready to fall and trust that we'll be caught, right? Easier said than done. It's so simple, but it's not easy, right? So those are some things that are inspiring. I think what I find inspiring about having you on the podcast too, Zhanna, is that we can read about these things and they're just words on a page. We're kind of separated from the being who experienced them. And to have you on the podcast and hear you say these things gives it a realism, I guess, that offers hope. And I'm hoping that anyone who watches the podcast will gain hope from everything you've said, right? Because you've experienced it. And, maybe there are books in you that have yet to be written, but to have you live, recorded, and listen to your story, there is hope, right? That it's not just a theory. The problem with our mental approach to things is that we do theorize and we do make constructs and we do question instead of trusting. So thank you for that, because I think that's immensely valuable. Not that the books aren't valuable, but there's something so much more tangible to hearing you say what you're saying and then learning to trust. So we are kind of running out of time. So I do want to let people know, first of all, where they can find you. And then I want to talk about your work a little bit, because I know that's very meaningful for you. And I want to talk about what that means from a being standpoint, because we are here to do in the context of our being, not separate from that. So yes. I want to let everybody know that they can find you online at soulcongruency.com. Yes. A beautiful name to your business. Tell me what that means and how that shows up in your work. What is soul congruency?
Good question. Well, congruency is something that is more related to the mind, right? Like we can say that it's something more rational to achieve, right? When our words, thoughts, beliefs, and actions are in alignment with each other. And soul is something very fluid, is something out there, so to speak, right? So combining and marrying both aspects of this rational and let's say irrational aspects of our mind, this is what I focus on in my work, because I know, I think we've discussed with you that a lot of people that come from spiritual beliefs and spiritual communities, they tend to live mostly in this irrational world, which separates them from here and now, from actually being grounded in this world, right? And people that, let's say, mostly analytical, yeah, because they were conditioned, let's say, IT, financial, right? What I've learned, there is none of that irrational. None of that is irrational. You have to be a very rational person, very analytical, which that's why it did not resonate with me. But again, those people are mostly analytical, right? But marrying both, becoming that seed of balance within yourself, I think that's what makes the entire difference in our lives. To answer your question about the work that I do believe, even though I do focus and specialize in past life regression, which is a huge topic, and it's probably a topic in itself for the entire episode. There is so much information in it. However, I do believe that there's more things in this lifetime that we can focus on. So again, spiritual community people, spiritually oriented people tend to bypass this aspect and kind of jump onto, oh, I need to do a past life regression because I don't have a good relationship, let's say, with my family, with my partner, whoever. And I would start by asking questions. Okay, so what exactly that means to you? What happened, and what is the pattern? So the patterns usually we can adjust in the current lifetime. It's a very rare thing when we can actually, use past life regression to overcome something in this lifetime, unless it's some kind of a phobia or something very strange. But most of the things will echo from the past into the now. So this is how you know, when you notice, when you hear and listen, what is going on? How do I feel? What is the pattern in my lifetime? What was the pattern with money? What was the pattern with relationships? What was the pattern with just me? How do I feel, right? Have I been depressed for many years, or have I had anxiety for many years? So all of these patterns, they're telling us much more than we can hear, right? Much more than we can see. And a lot of people like to jump into the past, so to speak, past life regression. They're mostly parallel lifetimes, right? There's not such a thing as going chronologically into the past. There is no such a thing, even though, again, our rational mind wants to create a picture of this linear time. Yeah, this is year of 2021, and this is a year of 1858. This is where I'm going to on this line. It's not how it works. We can access all of the lifetimes, including the future lifetimes, in the here and now.
So it's more like, if I can interrupt, Zhanna. So yes. It's more like really tapping into the string of potential, string theory. You're actually kind of hopping timelines, which are all here and now. So instead of actually lives we've lived in the past, all of the possibilities exist before us. And so we can, I guess in a sense, almost time travel, right?
Time travel.
Hop strings and just go from one string to another to look for resolution or to experience, right? To bring those experiences back to um, it's complex, right? Because if everything is now,
very complex.
how do we bring it into some type of clock, right? Or some type of understanding given this lifetime? It's fascinating, right? And very hard to explain unless you get into maybe quantum physics. But I'm fascinated by the idea.
Yeah, I'm not a quantum physicist, so I can't really explain that. I just know it within myself. It's an intuitive knowing, and it's also observation. From working with multiple people doing those jumps, like it's sort of like a quantum leap. Like you go here, you go there, and then you come back, you're still here. Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that a lot of people are very curious about past life regression, right? Oh, who I was, what I was doing. Oh, what happened to me? How is it affecting my life here and now? Those are all legitimate questions. However, your current life will always tell you what happened to you before, only if you listen, only if you listen. But it is much harder to take responsibility, because healing starts with responsibility, and taking that first tiny decision, making that decision is like, I actually am responsible for my dysfunctional, relationship, for my, a dysfunctional relationship with money or career or things like that, right? It's much harder to do it consciously here and now, rather than thinking, because I have a block from the past life, that's why it's not happening for me, right? It's very correlated. What happened in the past will always echo in the now, unless you resolve it. It's an unresolved trauma, unresolved belief systems. And in certain cases, I call those people healing agents. Healing agents, they usually fall onto this. This is the hardest. I am myself for my lineage as well. Those are the healing agents for their entire lineage. So people that carry the weight on their shoulders, not just for themselves, but also for at least a few generations before them. Those patterns, let's say, after I studied healing abandonment in myself, I called my grandma that was still alive, and I told her, you are the last person who can tell me something, at least a little bit of it, right? And she would tell me, we didn't have, in our lineage, we really didn't have much of a good, happen to people. So they were all broken. They were all either died, or some of the children were abandoned completely by their mothers. Marriages were broken. So that I had to work on within myself. Not that I had to, connect with my ancestors and talk to them directly, but it happened within myself, right? So as trauma, generational trauma, intergenerational trauma can be passed on to the next generation, so as healing can be also passed on to the next generation. So, and there's this point where these people that suffer the most in their current lifetime, they make that decision, they take responsibility. Okay, I am responsible for my happiness and my healing today, not some other lifetime, but today I am responsible. And so from that point, of course, it will take years, maybe, to overcome all of that ancestral, the blockages and everything. But the next generations that will come after them will have a much, much better time being here, much better time. It's sort of like, when we detox our body, right? We feel better. When we cleanse, we feel better afterwards. It's similar. Yeah. I encourage people to look at their current lifetime first. I do. As much as past life regression sounds very mysterious and fun and interesting, I do encourage people to look at themselves here and now. This is what matters, because you're here, you're not there. You're here consciously, and of course unconsciously, exploring all those things. That's what matters today.
Right. It sounds like if I really like that approach. Look at the life here and now, because if you're going to take responsibility, you have to do it in the here and now. And if you're going to be a victim, you can be a victim of past lives as much as you can be a victim of past days, weeks, months, and years. So I think that's really, really poignant. Before you go into past life regression and looking at all of those points of possibility and what your intergenerational trauma and or healing might look like, to really look at accepting responsibility. It reminds me of Ho'oponopono.
Yes, I love Ho'oponopono.
Being responsible. So I love that congruency. Zhanna, this is my last episode before I take a hiatus, but when Old Soul Archaeology comes back online in a podcast, I'd love to have you back. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I know we can dig much deeper. So for now, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
You can find Zhanna Bright at soulcongruency.com and set up a consultation with her. She offers a 30-minute getting to know you to see if there's anything she can do to help you understand your trauma and your growth better. Again, Zhanna, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. This has been Old Soul Sojourn with Zhanna Bright of Soul Congruency. My name is Michelle Janae. Until next time, dare to dig deep.